Hey, what's up, Mafia? Welcome back to the commute. And in this video, we're going to be learning about inline functions. Now, inline functions is a pretty commonly asked question in an Android interview, and there's a lot to learn here. Hopefully, you guys really enjoy it. And for now, let's get started. Now, let's quickly look at what inline function is and what is the definition of inline function. Now, before we take up inline functions, hopefully you know what are higher order functions. If you do not know what higher order functions are, it's pretty simple. These are some of the functions that take other functions as the parameter. Okay, so just to say we have a function called high, and this is a simple function called hof, and then it takes a function. It might be pretty similar that you have seen in compose, like callbacks, right? For example, some kind of action takes and gives out unit, and when you pass hof here, you can see we have curly brackets here, and we can just say println higher order functions. As you can see, it prints out higher order function. Pretty cool. Okay, this is how you make higher order functions, and you might have already seen this kind of behavior in compose when you're creating a simple, for example, column, right? And you have this kind of stuff, and you have this kind of function already there, this kind of brackets there, right? This is called a higher order functions. Compose is based upon higher order functions. When it comes to higher order functions, you might have seen that this function is being called inside of another function. How does it do that? Hopefully we can decompile it and actually see how does it do that. Now we're trying to look at a Scratch file. So of course it has its own stuff going on here, runtime something. But if we look at this particular function, I think so this is the public final void hof, the function that we made, and at the not null function action. As you can see, this is a function object, and we are trying to invoke it. As you can see, we're calling action inside of here. We are making a function object, and that function object is being invoked right here. We're calling this invoke here, right? Function 0, passing it as a parameter of hof, and then we are trying to invoke it here. One more interesting thing that I found out was that what do you mean by function 0? 0 means how many argument it takes. A function that takes 0 arguments. So I believe the function can take up to 22 arguments, and there is no more invoke here. So I think more than 22 arguments it cannot take. So that's pretty interesting to see. So basically what Kotlin does, that it produces an anonymous class of function 0 unit type, okay, and which is being passed here. And this function 0 is just saying that we require a function with 0 parameter, and its name is action, and then we try to invoke it right here. Hopefully it makes sense, and this is how we pass a function here, and that is how the higher order functions work. If you want to know more about higher order functions, I'll be making more videos around that. Until then, these were some of the basic stuff. Okay, let's get into inline functions. Now, as you've seen that since we are passing some kind of object here, there's a extra overhead that is being formed. Instead of just copying this line and pasting it here, it would be producing much less overhead onto this function. But if you're passing an action.invoke, it is producing some kind of overhead. Hopefully you understand this thing, right? It is going through another function. It forms a class, it forms an object, then it goes through another function, then we call the println. So it's kind of making an overhead. What if we can just copy this particular function and paste it right here, and we don't have to this objects and stuff? How can we do that? The answer is pretty simple. If we just say inline here, we might be able to do this. The answer is still the same. It prints higher order functions. Right now, let's actually decompile this code once more. Now this is the file without any inline keyword, and this is the file with the inline keyword. Now as you can see, there are certain differences right here, and this is something that is happening. As you can see, this is scratch3. This is I think the file name, the KTS file name dot hof. hof is the function. Then we have this function o null instance that is being passed here inside of hof, and the hof is just calling this action.invoke whatever this function of parameter 0 has. Hopefully it makes sense, right? This is how the scratch3 file is working, right? It is calling the scratch3's file hof function and then passing the functions 0 null.instance, something like that, right? Now here what we can see is that we have some kind of scratch3's reference here, and we can see that we are directly getting the higher order function which was being invoked inside of action, it is directly being copied and pasted right here in form of some kind of string var5. And we can see this is a system out println function as well right here. We're just printing it here without making the instance of this function o action. We're just invoking it and it prints it right here, right? We're just copying this code, whatever is inside of this, and pasting it right here. This reduces the overhead, and that is what exactly inline keyword does. Hopefully this makes it much more clear. You can just open up Kotlin bytecode and try to observe it yourself. It will make it much more clear in the longer run. Let me quickly write down the definition of inline function right here, so hopefully you can note it down somewhere. This is how you can explain stuff, okay, which calls the actual code body at the compile time. You can just say that. I'm trying to produce the definition in the layman's language. Hopefully it makes sense now. Let me quickly go on and actually give you a much better example of inline functions. Okay, pretty simple stuff. Okay, and then we will just say example inline, right, and println inside. Okay, now since this is inline, what do you think will happen, right? Now, of course, this is a pretty similar thing. If you use inline or do not use inline, it doesn't affect as such. But what will be happening inside of the bytecode? Let's look at that. Okay, let's look in the Kotlin, go inside of show Kotlin bytecode and then just decompile it, right? Let's just look at the function, what is happening. Of course, there is some kind of final void example inline function being called here. It has some kind of string, prints out something, then action.invoke, which is the action, that type of function that takes 0 parameter, and we invoke that. We have var, then we print and out everything. This is the part of the run kt.run compiled script scratch3 var 0 something is the part of the scratch3 file. We don't have to look at that, but we can look at this public scratch3 file. This is the first function, I think so, that will be executing, right? We can skip this particular part, but look at this thing. Okay, before action, where is this code from? If we look at that, we will find that this is from the example inline, right? So we have before action here. Okay, before action is here, print out. Then we have this int var, we can skip that. We have inside action suddenly. So this means that there should be an action here, action.invoke, something like that. But that is not here. We are actually copy pasting the code of whatever inside action function, right? Println, and we are producing it right here. Then we have this after action, then it prints. That is how the things are. If you just remove the inline and try to recompile it once and see the differences. Okay, now this is secondary one where the function is non-inlined. Okay, we can observe the differences automatically. Okay, this is the scratch3 function and this is the new one without inline. Okay, you can see scratch3 is the reference. Then we try to call examples inline function 0 null instance, we call that, and then it is being invoked right here and it is being printed. We are not copy pasting this code inside of scratch3, but with inline we can do that, and that reduces a lot of overhead, and this is how inline is playing out. So hopefully you guys really enjoyed this inline function session, and if you did, you know what to do. Like and subscribe, and as always keep watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.